Have you ever sent a message to the wrong person and felt your heart stop? Now imagine that person is your CEO. If you've ever wondered how a simple text mistake could change someone's life forever, this is the story you need to hear. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying stories that warm your heart and remind you that unexpected moments can transform our lives, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more content that touches your soul. The message notification lit up Daniel Evans' phone at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Most CEOs wouldn't check work messages that late, but Daniel wasn't most CEOs. 3 simple words from Emma Parker in HR: I miss you. For Emma, it was the most mortifying moment of her career, a text meant for her ex-boyfriend accidentally sent to the company's most powerful person. By morning, she was convinced she'd be packing her desk. Emma pulled into the company parking lot at 7:30 a.m., a full hour before her usual arrival time. The security guard gave her a puzzled look as she rushed past with her coffee clutched like a shield. She needed to be at her desk before anyone else arrived, especially him. Maybe she could somehow recall the message or convince IT it was a system glitch. The elevator ride to the 14th floor felt eternal. Emma stared at her reflection in the polished metal doors, barely recognizing the worried woman looking back. 6 months at Parker Industries had been challenging but rewarding. She'd finally found a workplace where her HR expertise was valued, where she felt she could build a career. And now, one careless thumb swipe might have ruined everything. The HR department was dark and silent when she arrived. Emma collapsed into her chair, powering up her computer with trembling fingers. She pulled up the company messaging system, hoping against hope that the message hadn't actually sent. But there it was: I miss you, delivered to Daniel Evans, CEO, at 11:47 p.m. Read at 11:52 p.m. Good morning, Emma. The deep voice behind her nearly caused her to spill coffee across her keyboard. Emma spun around to find Daniel Evans standing there, impeccable in a charcoal suit, his expression unreadable. Mr. Evans. I'm so sorry about last night. The message was. He held up a hand. I have meetings all morning. Let's talk about this later. His eyes lingered on hers for a moment longer than necessary before he turned and walked away, leaving Emma frozen in place, her heart hammering against her ribs. The morning crawled by. Emma's colleagues noticed her distraction but attributed it to the upcoming employee satisfaction report deadline. Only Priya, her closest work friend, sensed something more was wrong. You look like you've seen a ghost, Priya whispered during their coffee break. What happened? Emma's voice dropped to a barely audible murmur. I accidentally texted the CEO, I miss you, last night. Priya's eyes widened. You did what? It was meant for Alex. I was scrolling through my contacts and somehow. God, Priya, Evans saw it. He read it. He was just at my desk and said we'd talk about it later. That doesn't sound like he's firing you, Priya reasoned. Maybe he just thinks it's funny. Emma shook her head. Nothing about Daniel Evans is funny. The man runs the company like a Swiss watch. I've never even seen him smile. But that wasn't entirely true. Emma had seen him smile once, during her interview 6 months ago, when she'd made an unexpected joke about corporate culture. The smile had transformed his serious face, revealing dimples and crinkling the corners of his eyes. For a brief moment, he'd seemed almost human. At precisely 2:15 p.m., Emma received another message, my office. 4:30 p.m. The hours until the meeting were torturous. Emma rehearsed her explanation, her apology, and even updated her resume during lunch. By 4:25, she'd convinced herself this would be her last day at Parker Industries. Daniel Evans' office occupied the corner of the 15th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of the city. Emma knocked softly on the open door. Come in, he called, not looking up from his computer screen. Emma took a seat across from his desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The silence stretched for an uncomfortable minute before he finally looked up. "Do you know why I hired you, Emma?" he asked. The question caught her off guard. I assumed it was my qualifications and experience in HR. "Partly," he nodded. "But mainly because in your interview, you were the only candidate who told me our employee wellness program was, and I quote, well-intentioned but fundamentally missing the point." Emma winced at the memory. "I was very nervous. Sometimes I speak too directly when I'm nervous." The ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I value directness. Which is why your message last night was interesting. Mr. Evans, about that, it was completely accidental. I was trying to text someone else, my ex-boyfriend actually, and your name is right next to his in my contacts. I would never presume to." "Do you know I've been CEO for 7 years?" he interrupted. Emma nodded, confused by the change in subject. 7 years, and every day, people tell me what they think I want to hear. Great idea, Mr. Evans. Brilliant strategy, sir. Even when I'm wrong, perhaps especially when I'm wrong." He stood up and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "Do you know what nobody ever says? I miss you. Nobody misses the CEO. They fear him, respect him, maybe even admire him. But miss him? No." Emma didn't know how to respond. This wasn't the conversation she had prepared for. 3 months ago, he continued, you proposed changes to our parental leave policy. The board rejected it. Do you remember what you did? I revised it and submitted it again, Emma said. 3 times. Until they approved it. He turned to face her. You know why I remember that? Emma shook her head. Because you didn't give up. And because after the board meeting, you stopped me in the hallway and said, thank you for supporting this, Mr. Evans. It will make a real difference. He moved closer, leaning against the front of his desk. Nobody thanks the CEO either, Emma. They assume it's his due. Emma felt the conversation shifting into unfamiliar territory. I don't understand what this has to do with my message. Daniel Evans looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. I was married for 12 years. My divorce finalized 6 months ago, right around when you started here. My ex-wife said I was married to this company, that I had forgotten how to be human. Maybe she was right. He paused, seeming to consider his next words carefully. Your accidental message was the first personal thing anyone has said to me in this building in years. It wasn't meant for me, I understand that. But it made me realize something important. Emma waited, hardly daring to breathe. I've created a company culture where personal connections are sacrificed for professional efficiency. Where the CEO is seen as some untouchable figure rather than a person. I don't want that anymore. At 4:45 p.m., Daniel Evans' assistant knocked on the door, reminding him of his next appointment. He nodded but didn't take his eyes off Emma. We'll continue this conversation another time, he said. You're not in trouble, Emma. Quite the opposite. Relief washed over her as she stood to leave. But as she reached the door, his voice stopped her. Emma? She turned back. Daniel Evans had moved closer, his voice dropping to just above a whisper. If you ever do miss me, not as your CEO but as a person, I'd like to hear it. Say it again, but mean it this time. The next day, the office buzzed with news. Daniel Evans had announced a company-wide initiative to foster more authentic workplace relationships, starting with managers spending more time with their teams outside of formal meetings. The rumor mill churned with speculation about what had prompted this sudden change in the famously aloof CEO. Only Emma knew the truth. And when Daniel stopped by her desk that afternoon with a coffee, just how you like it, 2 sugars and a splash of almond milk, her colleague's eyebrows nearly reached the ceiling. I noticed, he said simply, placing the cup on her desk. That's the point of this whole initiative. To notice the people around us. As weeks passed, the company began to transform. Team lunches became common. Daniel instituted No Email Fridays, where people had to actually walk to each other's desks for communication. Productivity didn't suffer, it improved. Employee satisfaction scores rose sharply. And Emma found herself working closely with Daniel, developing programs to strengthen workplace connections. Their professional relationship grew into a friendship built on mutual respect and honesty. She saw him not as the intimidating CEO but as Daniel, brilliant, dedicated, and surprisingly funny when he let his guard down. 3 months after the fateful text, Emma stopped by Daniel's office late one evening. Most of the staff had gone home, but his light was still on. He looked up from his desk, tired but pleased to see her. "The quarterly numbers are looking good," she said. "Employee retention is up 18%. "That's your doing," he replied, leaning back in his chair. "No," Emma shook her head. "It's yours. You were willing to change things that weren't working, even when it meant being vulnerable." He studied her for a moment. "Have dinner with me tonight, Emma." Not as CEO and HR director. As Daniel and Emma. The question hung in the air between them. Emma thought about the company policy on workplace relationships, which she herself had helped draft. There were disclosure procedures, professional boundaries to maintain. But she also thought about the man before her, who had revealed his loneliness to her, who had changed his company because of 3 accidental words. "I'd like that," she said finally. "And Daniel?" "Yes?" Emma smiled. "I miss you when you're not around. And this time, I mean it." The transformation of Parker Industries became a case study in authentic leadership. Daniel Evans, once known as the most distant CEO in the industry, was now celebrated for creating one of the most people-centered corporate cultures. What nobody knew was that it all began with an accidental text message. 1 year later, Emma stood nervously behind the podium at the annual company meeting. As the newly promoted Director of Employee Experience, she was presenting the results of their workplace transformation initiative. "Connection," she told the assembled employees, "isn't just about team-building exercises or company picnics. Real connection happens when we allow ourselves to be seen, not just as workers, but as people." From the front row, Daniel watched her with pride. Their relationship had evolved carefully, following all proper protocols, with full disclosure to the board and HR department. It hadn't been easy navigating the complexities of their positions, but they'd built something rare, a partnership based on mutual growth and genuine respect. Sometimes, Emma continued, the most powerful words aren't found in corporate strategies or mission statements. Sometimes, they're as simple as, "I miss you." 3 words that remind us we matter to someone else. The audience didn't know she was telling their story, how an accidental text had changed everything. How vulnerability had transformed not just a company, but 2 lives. That evening, as they walked along the river near Emma's apartment, Daniel took her hand. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small, gift-wrapped box. Emma opened it carefully. Inside was a silver keychain with an engraving, "I miss you." "So you never forget," he explained, "how 3 words can change everything." Emma looked up at the man she had come to love, not the CEO, but Daniel, with all his strengths and flaws. The man who had been brave enough to let down his walls when an accidental text message showed him what he was missing. "I won't forget," she promised. "And Daniel? I still mean it. Every day. Life doesn't always give us second chances. But sometimes, an accident, a mistake, a moment of unintended vulnerability opens a door we never knew existed." Emma's wrong text had been exactly that, a door to a connection that neither she nor Daniel knew they needed. The journey hadn't been perfect. They'd faced skepticism from colleagues, careful scrutiny from the board, and their own fears about mixing professional and personal lives. But they'd navigated it together, always returning to the simple truth that had started it all: everyone, even a CEO, needs to be seen as human. If you've enjoyed this story of how one small mistake can lead to life-changing connection, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Remember that in a world of carefully curated professional personas, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply be human with each other. The message might be as simple as, "I miss you," but its impact can transform not just a relationship, but an entire community.